After years of deflection, staged interviews, and controlled narratives, the dam has finally burst. Prince Harry has broken his silence in a way no one, certainly not the royal family, was prepared for. His words, raw and unfiltered, were recorded during what was intended to be a confidential sit-down with a respected royal biographer. Yet, the footage was leaked to a source outside the palace's grasp, and its contents have ignited a firestorm. At the heart of Harry's stunning confession is the revelation of a secret deal, an agreement that predates Meghan's royal exit by weeks, possibly even months. This wasn't a spontaneous departure or a sudden fallout. This was premeditated, orchestrated in part by Harry himself, and shrouded in layers of silence and royal protocol. The magnitude of this disclosure cannot be overstated. For years, the public was led to believe in a chaotic, emotionally driven exit. But now, we see something far more complex and far more calculated. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. According to Harry, the arrangement was known only to a select few. It was a sealed understanding, never formally written in any royal charter or family communique, but enforced nonetheless through mutual interest. Harry claims this pact was presented as a protective measure designed to offer him and Meghan a quiet passage out of royal life without triggering scandal or constitutional scrutiny. But what stuns most observers is the claim that Meghan herself was never fully informed. If true, it raises disturbing questions about agency, trust, and whether Meghan's role in this historical break was ever truly her own to command. Within minutes of the leak, courtiers scrambled to contain the damage. King Charles, said to have been left utterly speechless, has reportedly gone into emergency meetings at Clarence House. Camilla's response, by contrast, has been described as visibly rattled, suggesting she, too, may have been caught off guard by the extent of the revelations. Inside Montecito, sources say the atmosphere has shifted from calm detachment to emotional chaos. Meghan, blindsided by the leak and the betrayal it implies, has reportedly been in tears. She had spent years defending their decision as a united front. Yet now it seems that front may have been built on shaky, possibly manipulated ground. As the media swarms this explosive story, headlines erupt with speculation. Who was in the room when this deal was first discussed? Was the Queen aware? And why would Harry agree to a pact that left his wife in the dark? Rumours swirl of hidden correspondences, deleted texts, and key royal advisors who may have orchestrated the entire escape behind the scenes. But this is only the beginning of the unravelling. Harry's confession is not just a single bombshell, it's the first tremor in a long dormant fault line beneath the monarchy. But to understand how this silent pact came to be, we must rewind to the quiet meetings that laid the foundation for a royal exit unlike any other. It wasn't the televised confessions or polished memoirs that marked the true unravelling of the royal narrative. Long before the world was introduced to terms like Megxit, a deeper, more dangerous current had already begun to shift beneath the palace floorboards. Prince Harry's recent revelation forces the world to look back not at what was said publicly, but what was done silently, in dimly lit corridors of Windsor Castle, where titles meant nothing and loyalty was currency. According to Harry, it was here that two unnamed senior courtiers approached him with a proposition that would blur the lines between freedom and obligation. Desperate to shield Meghan from an increasingly hostile press and disillusioned by his family's indifference, Harry was vulnerable, and they knew it. The courtiers weren't offering advice. They were orchestrating an escape, one dressed in diplomacy but driven by fear. They called it an emergency protocol. But to Harry, it would soon feel like a trap masquerading as mercy. This covert proposal didn't just promise an exit, it offered something far more seductive: immunity. Immunity from headlines, from palace scrutiny, from the tidal wave of backlash that Harry knew would come the moment he and Meghan stepped away. The catch? Silence. Total, irrevocable silence. Harry would have to forfeit any future claim to challenge the Crown's narrative. No memoirs. No televised accusations. no rebuttals if they twisted the story. In return, his family would promise to quietly restore certain privileges, financial cushions, minimal press exposure, even informal protection details. But it was never written, never sealed in ink. It was a ghost agreement, alive only in the whispered words exchanged behind Windsor's fortified walls. And according to Harry, it nearly broke him. What makes this even more damning is the implication that Charles, then Prince of Wales, may have known fragments of the arrangement but chose not to interfere. Or worse, allowed it to progress under Camilla's guidance. Harry claims that she emerged, subtly but decisively, as the true orchestrator of Sunset Path, the palace's chilling code name for this covert operation. The very title is steeped in symbolic cruelty. A sunset implies closure, disappearance, even death. And that's precisely what the monarchy hoped would happen to Harry and Meghan's relevance. Fade quietly into the twilight, with no scandal, no backlash, no truth. But beneath the surface of this political maneuvering was a deeply human crisis. Harry was torn not just between duty and love, but between two versions of himself, one that still clung to the boy who walked behind his mother's coffin, and another who longed to shield his wife from the same ruthless machine. He confesses now that he walked into those meetings believing he had control, only to discover he was being led down a pre-planned corridor of silence and sacrifice. He kept the weight of the deal buried for months, trying to reconcile the future they were building with the compromise he had already made. But as the date of their official departure loomed, and the public narrative painted Meghan as the instigator, the guilt grew unbearable. This wasn't the clean break they had promised each other. This was a transaction, one that sold privacy in exchange for passivity. And even as Harry signed his part of the unspoken agreement, he knew something was deeply wrong. Yet even as deals were signed behind closed doors, one woman remained in the dark, and her discovery would change everything. The illusion of unity was everything. Meghan believed, with every fibre of her being, that their decision to leave the royal fold had been built on trust, mutual sacrifice, and absolute transparency. In public, they were a fortress too, souls against the crown. But behind closed doors, cracks were forming. It began with an accidental discovery, a forwarded email buried within a chain of logistical messages. Meghan, scrolling through correspondence about their Canadian security detail, noticed something strange. The subject line read, "Sunset Path, terms confirmed." Confused, she clicked. What she found shattered her understanding of everything she and Harry had supposedly decided together. The email hinted at agreements made before she had ever packed her final suitcase, referencing closed-door assurances, titles suspended in exchange for silence, and phrases like non-contested withdrawal. She wasn't just blindsided, she felt deceived. Her eyes locked on a sentence that would haunt her. HRH terms, non-reversible pending spouse awareness. Pending, not confirmed, not acknowledged, pending. The confrontation was immediate, in their secluded Canadian hideaway where the couple had hoped to find peace. Before the storm, peace died. Meghan demanded answers. Her voice trembled not with rage but with heartbreak. She asked Harry plainly, "Did you leave with me, or did you leave for me?" What followed was one of the most emotionally charged arguments the couple had ever endured. Harry, cornered, admitted to striking a confidential understanding with palace officials weeks before their joint statement. He hadn't lied, he insisted, but he had withheld. His voice cracked as he tried to explain that the deal had been made to shield her, to prevent the press from painting her as the architect of royal collapse. But to Meghan, that justification rang hollow. What use was protection built on partial truths? Had she not weathered enough in the name of clarity? The rupture was swift and piercing. Meghan questioned whether their marriage had truly survived the institution, or whether it had merely carried its ghosts into a different geography. The man she trusted to fight beside her had negotiated her silence without consent. For Meghan, it wasn't just about secrecy, it was about autonomy. She had fought to define her voice, only to discover that Harry had already muted it in the name of diplomacy. The tension spilled beyond the confines of their marriage. At a private dinner in Vancouver with a close AIDS family member, Meghan allegedly confronted the aide's wife, someone she believed had knowledge of the covert operation. "You traded our silence," she reportedly whispered, barely containing her fury. The woman refused to respond, retreating behind protocol and polite smiles, but the damage was done. Meghan no longer trusted the architecture of their exit. She now saw it for what it was, a negotiated performance. Harry, overwhelmed by the emotional aftermath, issued an apology that was sincere but insufficient. He repeated again and again that he had done it to protect her, to keep her from the worst of the royal machinery. But intentions don't always erase impact. Meghan's heartbreak was deeper than betrayal. It was the realization that her story had been partially scripted without her knowledge. Their partnership, once held up as a symbol of mutual defiance, now stood on fractured ground. And yet, while they worked through the damage in private, another storm was building in silence, a hidden clause buried in royal documents that would soon reveal just how much power the crown still held over them. But while emotional wounds festered privately, a ticking time bomb had already been set within the palace itself. The deal was supposed to be final, clean, public-facing, a mutual agreement between a modern monarchy and a prince, stepping away from duty. But buried beneath the ceremonial language and public relations spin, a legal landmine had been set, and Harry's recent revelations dragged it out from the shadows. At the heart of the storm lies a singular clause, drafted with surgical precision and buried so deep within the exit, documentation that not even Meghan noticed its existence. Insiders now call it the repatriation clause. Its meaning? Chilling. Under this clause, King Charles retains the authority to revoke or reclaim any privileges, security funding, formal titles, bows, even symbolic connections to the crown if he deems the Sussexes have violated the dignity or legacy of the institution. In essence, it's a trapdoor silent until triggered, and when it is, it drops with a ruthless thud. The timing of this discovery couldn't be more devastating. What rattled observers most wasn't just the clause's presence, but its targets. According to leaked annotations from an internal legal advisor, the clause references not only Harry and Meghan but their children, Archie and Lilibet. Though never named explicitly, they are described as descendants of non-active senior lineage. The language is cold, clinical and dangerous. It gives Charles unprecedented power to strip away HRH rights from the next generation if the Sussexes breach any verbal or written conditions of respectful disengagement. The implications are staggering. This isn't just about punishing Harry and Meghan, it's about sending a message to their bloodline. A monarchy that claims to stand above politics has weaponized its laws like a blade. Harry, when asked in the leaked recording about the clause, admitted he signed the agreement under duress, claiming he was pushed by palace lawyers to finalize documents quickly for the sake of the Queen's peace. But what Meghan didn't know, and what Harry now says, keeps him awake at night is that the clause was inserted after their joint review and never disclosed to her in full. It was, as one aide put it, legal sleight of hand. Meghan signed off on their terms based on Harry's understanding, unaware that the clause allowed the palace to tighten its grip even after their departure. It's betrayal by omission, and it reveals just how, meticulously, the monarchy prepared to control the narrative even after supposedly letting them go. Sources close to the palace whisper that the clause was not Charles's original idea, but was pushed through by an external legal strategist one previously dismissed from royal council and now quietly linked to Camilla's private advisory circle. The fingerprints are subtle, but the intent is loud. Camilla, still navigating her own legacy battles, may have had more influence over the Sussex exodus than previously imagined. She understood better than most that the monarchy's future depended not just on silencing rebellion, but ensuring it could never rise again. A royal aide familiar with abdication procedures called the clause the most aggressive post-abdication stipulation since Edward VIII. But this isn't the 1,930 seconds. And Harry isn't going quietly, because while the Crown believed it had safeguarded itself with ink and law, it had underestimated something far more volatile: emotion. And just when the monarchy thought it had neutralized the threat, another voice rose from the shadows, one with nothing left to lose. The monarchy had survived countless crises, but this one struck directly at its emotional core. For Prince William, Harry's confession wasn't just shocking, it was a knife through the heart of everything they had once shared. Brotherhood, trust, loyalty, words they had clung to in childhood, walking behind their mother's coffin, now lay shattered beneath the weight of betrayal. As news of the secret Sunset Path deal broke, William was blindsided not only by its existence but by its deliberate concealment from him. For a man raised to be king, kept informed of every whisper within the institution, this omission felt not accidental, but orchestrated. The revelation hit harder than any tabloid headline ever could, because it wasn't just the press or the public that had been deceived, it was him. And that betrayal cut far deeper than Harry seemed to understand. According to palace insiders, the fallout was immediate and ferocious. Communications between the brothers, already sporadic and strained, erupted into a digital firestorm. Through encrypted messaging channels once reserved for urgent family coordination, the two engaged in what one royal aide described as a roaring match in typed words. William's messages, terse and furious, accused Harry of deliberately using truth as a weapon not to heal, but to wound. "You weaponize the past because you can't live in the present," he allegedly typed, echoing the frustration of a man who had watched his brother dismantle their shared legacy from across an ocean. Harry's reply was just as brutal. He accused William of being a pawn in an arrangement you never questioned, a man who had surrendered his agency to protect a system that never protected them. While this silent war played out behind screens and security walls, other forces began to stir. Kate, sensing the volatility in her husband, reportedly urged restraint. Her fear wasn't for her reputation, it was for the monarchy itself. She warned that a public civil war between the heirs would ignite a scandal so large, even Buckingham Palace couldn't contain it. But as William wrestled with his rage, another figure saw opportunity. Camilla, always observant, always calculating, seized the moment. With Charles consumed by legal implications and reputational fallout, she stepped into the vacuum of influence. Sources claim she began quietly advising William, urging him to remain firm, to assert control, to become the unshakable center around which the monarchy could now rally. But Harry saw this too, and his response was chilling. He alleged, both privately and now through the leaked recordings, that William was being manipulated, coaxed into embracing a power dynamic that served the monarchy, not his soul. The brothers were no longer adversaries by choice, but by design. What had begun as a protective deal for a young family had evolved into a fracture with the potential to redefine the royal lineage. And as the public chose sides and the palace scrambled for damage control, one question loomed larger than any other. What else did Harry know, and what was he still holding back? Because as royal relationships fracture, the real danger lies not in the past, but in what Harry threatens to release next. Just when the public thought the final word had been spoken, when Spare was closed and catalogued in the Royal Controversy archives, Prince Harry revealed that the most damning chapter of all was never published. It wasn't censored by the publisher, it was redacted by Harry himself. And now, he's lifting the veil. In whispered interviews and cryptic remarks, Harry has begun to hint at a section once titled The Camilla Summit, a removed portion of his memoir that allegedly details a secret meeting involving Queen Camilla, Princess Anne, and two top palace strategists days before his departure from royal life was made official. The content, according to one publishing source, was explosive enough to destabilize senior royal reputations for a generation. But why was it held back? And why is Harry now threatening to release it? At the heart of this suppressed material lies something even more unsettling, a royal diary belonging to Princess Anne. Unlike official palace documentation, this was private, handwritten, and unfiltered. According to individuals familiar with the early drafts of Spare, Anne's diary contradicts the official timeline of when the Sussexes' exit discussions began. It suggests that conversations to cut Harry and Meghan loose began before Meghan had even arrived back from North America. In other words, it paints the palace not as a reactive body cornered by Harry's decisions, but as the architects of the exile itself. For the monarchy, this shift in narrative is dangerous. For Harry, it's personal, because if what's written in Anne's private account is true, then the family he trusted to negotiate in good faith had been laying the groundwork for his removal while he was still trying to protect it from the press. The stakes rose further when it emerged that Meghan had pleaded with Harry not to publish the Camilla Summit chapter at the time of Spare's release. Her concern was not for herself, nor even for Camilla, but for their children. Meghan reportedly feared that exposing Camilla and Anne's roles in the early orchestration would reopen wounds, incite media hostility, and invite legal retaliation that could affect their security arrangements. So Harry compromised. He pulled the chapter reluctantly. But in the new wave of revelations, that compromise may be unraveling. Harry has now hinted, both in leaked audio and veiled online statements, that he is prepared to publish the chapter if provoked. That word provoked has become a loaded signal, and the palace knows it. Adding to the intrigue is the ghostwriter of Spare, who has recently begun publishing anonymous blog entries that appear to reference unreleased content. One post, simply titled Echoes in the Red Room, details a fictional royal confrontation with uncanny parallels to the rumoured summit. It references a queen consort, a steel-eyed princess, and an uninvited observer who wasn't supposed to hear. Readers and royal watchers alike are connecting the dots, and the palace has noticed. Behind the scenes, royal courtiers are said to be desperately attempting to retrieve the original unedited manuscript. Some believe a digital copy may still exist, encrypted, in the custody of a publishing attorney in New York. Others fear that excerpts have already been leaked to international press outlets and are merely waiting for the right scandal to emerge before being used as leverage. Most damning of all is a quiet whisper shared by a former private secretary to the late Queen, Elizabeth, that Her Majesty may have been misinformed about the true nature of Harry's departure, that while she believed the deal had been mutual and diplomatic, senior figures around her had withheld key facts about the Camilla meeting and the legal backdoors written into the Sussex exit. If true, it means the Queen herself was used as a shield, her goodwill leveraged to legitimize a premeditated purge. This revelation, more than any other, threatens to erode the carefully maintained myth of a family navigating crisis together. Because in truth, some of them were planning a coronation, and others were planning an erasure. As pressure builds from inside and outside the monarchy, one figure emerges with a motive to silence Harry forever. For years, Camilla had weathered storms that would have crushed most. From being the most vilified woman in the British press to standing beside a man once thought too damaged to rule, she had endured. But she hadn't just survived, she had learned. Every smear campaign, every icy reception, every whisper behind closed doors had taught her one thing. So, when Harry's revelations began to swirl, threatening not just her image but the very scaffolding of Charles's fragile reign, Camilla did not panic. She moved. Quietly, precisely, and with chilling efficiency. Legal channels were activated behind palace walls, initiating formal inquiries into whether Harry's leaks had breached confidentiality clauses buried in the Sussex departure agreements. Lawyers connected to Camilla's long-standing legal aid, once derided as outdated, were suddenly central players in a looming case that could brand Harry not as a whistleblower, but as a violator of trust. At the same time, allies of Camilla, many embedded in the periphery of the press corps, began feeding carefully curated information to key outlets: financial inconsistencies, overspending, speculative clauses buried in Harry's Netflix and Spotify contracts that, when highlighted, painted the prince as dependent on drama for profit. It wasn't a direct attack, it was death by 1,000 cuts. The goal wasn't to ruin Harry overnight, it was to exhaust his credibility, one detail at a time, until the public stopped listening. But the most audacious move came in the form of an emissary. A royal representative, one known for brokering impossible truces, was dispatched discreetly to Montecito. They carried no threats, no warnings, only an offer. One Harry would find difficult to refuse: partial restoration of royal favour, private access to certain estate revenues for his children, and, most dangerously, an invitation to return for a high-profile family reconciliation event, all in exchange for the permanent burial of certain documents. Behind the scenes, Camilla's strategy expanded further. Sensing that Diana's legacy remained Harry's emotional anchor, she reached out to old Spencer family allies, cousins and confidants long distanced from the mainline press. Her aim was clear: to undermine the mythology of Diana as Harry's ultimate guiding light. If she could blur the lines of Diana's memory, dilute the narrative, she could weaken the one figure Harry had always believed would justify his rebellion. Then came the media pivot. Overnight, headlines shifted. No longer was Harry the haunted truth-teller. He became the ungrateful prince, the disruptive son, the disloyal brother. Expert PR specialists, linked to the same firm that had rehabilitated Camilla's image over a decade earlier, were reactivated. Campaigns were seeded online, complete with anonymous royal sources. It wasn't slander. It was character erosion, steady, sustained, and devastatingly effective. And at the heart of it all, buried beneath layers of protocol, was Operation Claymore, a crisis protocol designed for only the gravest reputational emergencies. Activated in secret, this operation's core objective was surgical: isolate Harry, dismantle his influence, and ensure any remaining material letters, recordings, drafts could never be made public without consequence. But for all her maneuvering, for all her skill, Camilla had miscalculated one thing. Because Harry was no longer playing by the rules of the monarchy. He was no longer moved by fear of consequence, and deep within his personal archive, he held something powerful, something tethered not to scandal, but to legacy. Something Camilla could not erase. But even with a queen's arsenal against him, Harry holds a final card, one connected to a name no one expected to hear again. She was gone, but never absent. Not for a day. Princess Diana's memory had lived on through tributes, portraits, and carefully curated narratives. But now, that memory was about to erupt into something far more powerful and far more dangerous. In a move that stunned even those closest to him, Harry revealed the existence of something he had long guarded in silence. A handwritten letter from his mother. One of two. Sealed envelopes, entrusted to separate keepers, meant for both sons but opened by only one. The contents of his letter, Harry claimed, were not maternal musings or words of comfort. They were warnings. Dark, prophetic words about the pressures that would one day close in. Diana had seen the signs long before they were visible to anyone else, and she left behind a message that now threatens to upend every carefully maintained royal illusion. In the letter, Diana reportedly writes of a quiet arrangement she feared would one day force her sons to choose between compliance and erasure. She warned of the crown's capacity to isolate dissenters, to turn love into leverage, and to rewrite truth in real time. Most alarmingly, she referenced the danger of ascension without compassion. A phrase Harry now links directly to his father's rise and Camilla's growing influence. Diana may not have known the details, but she understood the pattern. She foresaw that the monarchy would one day try to mold her children into relics of tradition or push them out entirely. For Harry, the words were more than a cautionary tale. They were validation, a mother's voice cutting through the noise, confirming what he had long feared, that his struggle was not only personal, it was ancestral. But while Harry read and wept over the letter, William never opened his. At least, not according to what Harry now claims. In a leaked exchange, Harry describes his brother's refusal to engage with the envelope. He said it was private, that some things were better left untouched, Harry recalls. But to Harry, that silence was part of the problem. In his view, William's unwillingness to confront Diana's final warnings had allowed the palace machinery to swallow him whole. And now, as the institution turns on Harry with sharpened claws, he's prepared to do the unthinkable release parts of the letter to the public, unless the palace retracts what he calls fabricated statements about the nature of his departure. It's not just a defensive move, it's an ultimatum. The response has been immediate and ferocious. Hashtags like Number Diana's Truth and Number the Letter surge across global platforms. Editorials erupt, commentators take sides. For many, Diana's words have reignited old wounds, confirming that her fears for her sons were not paranoia but prophecy. The public, already divided by years of royal scandal, is now confronting a seismic question. What else was Diana silenced about? And who benefited from keeping this letter hidden for so long? The crown, once protected by decades of narrative control, now finds itself cornered by a ghost it could never outrun. Because Diana isn't just a memory, she's a force, and through Harry, she's speaking louder than ever before. But as the past speaks through parchment and pain, the question remains, what will Harry do next? The royal chessboard is set, the players have made their moves. And now, only one decision remains. As Harry stands at a crossroads armed with truth, burdened by history, and pulled by love, his next act could either begin healing or ignite full-scale war. Behind the palace walls, a final offer has been delivered. It's not wrapped in apology, nor gilded in generosity. It's a deal of calculation. The monarchy, desperate to contain the fallout from Harry's revelations, has quietly proposed a truce. In exchange for Harry's silence, no more leaks, no more statements, no more hidden letters brought to light. The Crown would consider privately restoring certain titles and recognitions, even granting behind-the-scenes support for his family's security and public image. It's not a reconciliation born of remorse. It's a settlement designed to end the siege. But for Harry, the decision is anything but simple. The man who once fled a palace of secrets now stands in the shadow of a deal that could protect his children at the cost of his mother's voice. Meghan, caught between exhaustion and loyalty, has reportedly urged him toward peace. She's tired of being at war. She wants stability, quiet, space to rebuild. And though she hasn't forgiven what the institution took from her, she believes there's a chance, however faint, that their family could still carve out a safe future, even if that means Harry must bite his tongue. But Harry is haunted by Diana's warnings. Haunted by the idea that silence is complicity. That every time he agrees to another private concession, he erases a little more of the truth. And yet, in the quietest hours, he wonders if that truth is worth sacrificing his family's peace. Then, without warning, a message arrives from William. No grand gesture, no public spectacle, just a quiet, handwritten note passed through secure channels. The contents are never leaked, but sources say it's not a threat. Nor is it an apology. It's something far more difficult. A choice. A moment of vulnerability from the brother Harry once trusted more than anyone, offering neither judgment nor surrender, but an acknowledgement that the past can't be erased, only carried. Harry holds the note in one hand, Diana's letter in the other, and stares into the chasm between legacy and survival. Meanwhile, the world waits. The media breathes in unison, preparing for either redemption or detonation. Papers begin preparing two alternate headlines. Royal aides are briefed for a potential joint appearance, one last show of unity to quiet the chaos, though nothing has been confirmed. The tension crackles across continents. Then, suddenly, Harry speaks. Not through a palace interview or tabloid exclusive, but in a video statement, quietly uploaded, barely 30 seconds long. He doesn't name names. He doesn't answer questions. He simply says, "Some stories aren't finished. Some truths aren't meant to stay hidden. And, sometimes, love is choosing what to carry in silence." No follow-up, no caption. Just a man caught between fire and forgiveness. And as the screen fades to black, only one truth remains. The monarchy will never be the same again. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.